I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to episode 115 of Playing from the Tips, your weekly podcast taking a deep dive into professional golf around the world and offering up the best bets from our so-called experts. Jimmy Emanuel here as host again for a week between men's and women's US Opens, where we'll look at top-level golf from Canada, the US and Holland, and no doubt explore some far less pertinent subject matter. The first of our so-called experts has almost transcended the acceptable levels of success for our little show, with Rod Murray recording a second straight major winning tip this past week, our third overall of the year, all the while building Sydney podcast studios into his own Palace of Versailles, which this morning has proven to be not up to OH&S code. Welcome, Rod.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jimmy.
Rod, unlike Rod, there was no winning tip for Adrian Logue last week, who I noted also was not a winner in any senior club championships and mustn't be likened to Maya Stark as he is prone to do during major weeks. I would table that you bear no resemblance to Maya Stark on a golf course.
And no resemblance to a senior. I'm not a senior. Are you getting this?
You definitely are.
I'm not a senior.
Can we just back up a bit? Or frankly, a golfer. I think the definitions have started a little bit too far down the track. Yeah,
I did one of those body tracks things the other day. My metabolic age was 37.
What, like at a chemist?
That's nearly my legal age.
Nowhere near a senior.
Is that like a chemist where you put your hand in the thing and 20 cents in? Is it one of those things? Is that what you mean?
I like to tell people my physical age is 47, my legal age is 37, and my mental age is 27.
And as for the lack of winners, I thought about Maya Stark, and I think I initiated her in the conversation last week. And Ben Griffin, of course, nearly there. And
not unlike you,
I didn't actually pick
him,
but I did invent him.
You did conjure him up some weeks ago.
The reflections on last week, we've already talked a little bit of Maya Stark, but it was ultra impressive.
It was, although I think for me, Jimmy, the highlights sort of golf related, and it was the donuts this morning, which I don't know that you guys have been, frankly, thankful enough for.
Well, I don't know if
it's been a rough morning.
It's been a rough morning.
Don't tell the listeners this is take two because there was a recording issue.
That would be a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, that's exactly right. See how the sausage is made.
Yes, but Maya Stark going head to head with Nelly Korda, Erin Hills, I think showed pretty good for US Open type golf. It was what a US Women's Open should be.
It was extreme. Was it extreme? Was it over?
No, it's not
extreme.
No, it wasn't extreme. It was fantastic. It was a great festival.
Yeah, it was a fabulous show.
It's still probably a venue the USGA is learning to set up.
Well, so it was too green the first 2 days. What was going on there?
If they go back and they have another US Women's Open, I think it'll be even better. They learn a golf course. You don't just get it right every time.
We've been saying this about the USGA and Shinnecock Hills for over a century now. And every time they go back, they seem to manage to make a meal of it. So I take your broader point. I was more impressed with the course than I remember. I thought the course was better. We spoke last week about it. The only thing you could remember was the 18th hole, but it was a good and entertaining collection of holes. But as you said last week, like, just nothing stands out. I won't remember any of the holes.
It's a big ballpark. It's a big field.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the gradients all look the same.
Yeah.
Everything looks the same
severe
at a macro level when you're looking at it on TV. It's just at a macro level, it's all the same.
A bit too manicured.
It probably shows how hard it is to build a great modern golf course. Yeah. We'll see Oakmont at the Men's US Open next week, and what a fabulous venue it is, and tournament golf course and everything like that. And you think, why can't you just do that again? Well, it needs to have its own identity, but also the land needs to be good and everything, which shows what such achievements modern golf courses that are considered great are.
Yeah, and look, the gap between the recreational game and the professional game across the board is now so great that the relatability of golf courses is difficult for those who only play recreational. If that wasn't always the case. In the 1970s, you watched golf at Royal Melbourne, and it made sense as a recreational player. I don't think that's true anymore, even of the women's game. They played several of the par fours this week, well over 400 yards. You're starting to get up towards 400 metres for a par four. most club golfers, that's kind of at the limit, starting to approach a par 5. And so the relatability is just not what it used to be.
Well, it was at 5.5 Sahalis in
Yeah,
elevation.
that's true. I didn't
And
take
pretty
that into
baked
account.
out. So, yeah.
Yeah, lots of run out there.
Getting
Just-
a lot of good value for
Yeah,
the shot.
just something about that lack of it. But yeah, it was a terrific week. It was a shame that what happened on the last hole happened drawn out with poor old Julia Lopez Ramirez playing like a recreational golfer. So the other day, Nelly Corder did it in front of her, so you wouldn't say it's all the players' fault there. That was some really difficult golf around that green. Anyway, good show.
Good show.
And great
It
win.
was good.
And do you, Logue, wish to address the accusation you've levelled that Nelly Corder's got full-blown yips?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just thought it was remarkable that she contended at all with how bad she's putting. And
I think
clearly
it's
flinching
remarkable
on short
every
putts.
time that you play golf with that you chip the way you do it.
I
You
have
show
a
up
method
again.
now, and at work, I can get the ball consistently in the air and on the green. I have a method.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
Speaking of methods,
it kinda
there's
works.
probably no more successful method in world golf than Scotty Scheffler at the moment.
Oh, goodness me.
Just
But it's not, I don't know. I've spoken about this before. There's something about Scheffler that's just not that interesting, which is not to say that golf isn't next level and extraordinary to watch, but it's not electric like, it's not an exciting brand of golf. I don't know what it is. But
well, I think everyone wants to liken it to watching prime Tiger and all this sort of stuff. Tiger had fallible parts of his game. He drove the golf ball all over the planet at times when he was at a very high level, and he would hit these remarkable recovery shots that other players couldn't hit. Scotty Scheffler has that ability to hit shots that others don't hit, but he doesn't need to.
Yeah.
He finds
His margins are so massive.
Exactly.
Like he has to mess up big to get into trouble. It just feels like he's playing with
all
big
true, but
margins.
Isn't it? I've tried to write about this before. It's like trying to grab fog. He doesn't have it. Adam Scott doesn't have it. Tiger has it. Spieth has it. Min Woo has it. Ben Griffin has a bit of it. Scotty Scheffler doesn't have it. He's got an amazing golf game, but whatever it is that's almost impossible to put your finger on, he lacks it. And it's not a criticism. You know, he is just who he is. And you watch him play golf and you can do nothing but bow down and say that is incredible to watch.
Here's what it is. If you take a non-golfer, knows nothing about golf, and just say, like, you know, what's that last pairing, Ben Griffin and Scott Scheffler? Who do you think's the best player in the world? And I think a lot of them would say Ben Griffin.
Possibly, yeah.
He's got a little bit of it. What's the Bobby Jones story when he was playing a practice round for the British Open one year and he was just playing in some nondescript course and some bloke was just looking over the fence. And Jones just steps up and hits one. And the journalist who was travelling with Jones, I can't remember who it was, but
Grantland Rice.
Grantland Rice, okay. He
Working media.
he went over and spoke to the guy, and the guy's, who's that? And he said, Bobby Jones. He said, he must be the best golfer in the world.
yeah.
Knows nothing about the game and watches it.
Nothing about golf.
I remember actually you told that story in 2015. I just remember watching him. It was late Friday afternoon, I think, at the Open, and Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth were playing together, and they sort of showed him hit off from the 18th in the gloaming, and I thought, if you knew nothing about golf, you'd look at the two of them and you'd think that Spieth was some kind of sparring partner.
Yeah.
Surely Dustin Johnson has to be by far the superior golfer out of these two. Walking off the tee with his gunslinger action and all that, and Spieth kind of being Jordan, but just not the case. It's,
It's funny, Scheffler's got that quirky swing, which should be kind of exciting.
That should be the thing, but it's so repeatable that it doesn't necessarily. He's so grounded in good fundamentals, which was Tiger's thing too, but it just doesn't translate in the same way. The Jack Nicklaus, Ben Griffin's a nice player. You would think that nice player is how you would describe Scotty Scheffler probably his whole life until he becomes the most dominant player in world golf. Yeah. You would look at the way he plays golf and go, that guy's a nice player. Nice player means
funky action, nice
player means they get the ball round, they score well.
Yeah, the technician.
It's pretty impressive, but it's nothing I haven't seen before.
A series of perfectly presentable 6-irons.
Yeah. Yeah. Other highlights, Cam Percy getting into a playoff on the PGA Tour Champions. He has to get close soon. I think he might be our next winner out there, Cam.
Yeah. Lovely bloke too.
And Justice Bosio also in a playoff on the LET Access Series, which is one of the hardest places to learn the game professionally, and she's doing very well.
You're earning your career stripes if you're playing on the secondary LET Tour. Go Justice.
Absolutely.
That's good stuff.
On last week, as mentioned, we had one winner, 3 top 10s, all of which adds up to 30 wins and 72 top 10s for 2025. Numbers unrivaled by any podcast who, for the first time, have eaten donuts in their 115th episode while doing a second recording.
Finally.
Rod.
We just got over the line with the second recording, Jimmy. It was contentious before that, but we
Yep.
managed to separate ourselves by making a technical error. Sometimes good shots get bad bounces and bad shots get good bounces, Jimmy. That's how it goes.
Absolutely. And sometimes you're let down by your equipment. Let's move into this week. It is an action-packed week with the RBC Canadian Open, LIV Golf Virginia, Shoprite LPGA Classic and KLM Open. Rod, you can hit in the lead-off spot with the PGA Tour.
PGA Tour, the RBC Canadian Open, Jimmy. Historic event, well-respected event. Always felt like it gets the rough end of the stick from the PGA Tour, the Canadian Open. Yeah. It's 1904 it started, same year as the Australian
Wait till
Open.
the Americans invade Canada, then it'll be...
Well, once it's the 51st state and it becomes a state open.
Exactly.
Let's not start that.
No.
That's yeah. At the TPC at Osprey Valley North Course, which is a completely public 54-hole facility, privately owned but public, completely public, no members, which is to be applauded. Good on the powers that be in Canada for that. Now,
It's not called TPC Toronto. Is it?
TPC Toronto, sorry, at Osprey Valley North. That's it. At Osprey Valley. And it's called the North Course, but Jimmy, that's not what the course was called when it was originally built. So there's 3 courses here. The first course was the Hoot. This course, the North Course, was the Toot.
Wow.
And the third was the Heathland. What happened there? Did the marketing person leave?
Yeah, they had a whole thing going.
But it used to be called the Toot. Mm-hmm. Why would you change that? Because apparently the people who built it thought that golf was a bit staid and uninteresting and needed to be a bit more lighthearted and entertaining, so they called it the Hoot, the Toot, and you can insert whatever you'd put for the third course there.
Shoot.
As opposed to the Heathland.
Boot. What would you go with, Rod?
I don't know. I'm at a complete loss for
The Canadians...
cute. Yeah, cute.
The Canadians,
Mute. There you go.
Canadians do like a
do.
funny name. So like they call what we would call a beanie, or Americans might call a winter hat. They call it a toque.
Why?
Don't know. But they call it's exclusively a toque. It's a type of hat.
It's a fascinating. It's got its own golf culture.
I think they call I think it's one of their coins. I don't know if it's a quarter or it's a dime. They call a loonie. Yeah.
Well, they've got the mixed language thing, haven't they? And
Yeah.
Canadian French is different to French.
It's a great
yeah.
place.
Well, they've got-
I very much enjoy Canada.
I think
The
that's great.
chips and gravy thing, they're called poutine.
Yep.
Why?
Speaking of donuts.
Why not?
Speaking of donuts, and we're off track a little here, we will get back shortly, but Canada has an obsession with this place called Tim Hortons. So when you go to Canada for the first time, every Canadian will tell you got to go to Timmy's and go to Tim Hortons. It's kind of like a Dunkin' Donuts type situation. Your standard filter coffee and donut holes and donuts, and it's terrible.
Oh.
So that may feel like
Isn't
a
the
way
clue in the name? Tim Horton?
It's like a national institution, and I don't believe in it. No.
Oh.
There you go.
My favourite Canada story was a comedian I saw once who got on stage, introduced himself, and said, "Hi, I'm from Canada, 668, neighbour of the beast." Which, for those of us outside the US, probably think is funny. 54 holes there, as I said, built by this a couple of guys. They bought the land 30 years ago. Always wanted to see it become a golf course. This one was all 3 courses were done by an architect called Doug Carrick, who I don't know a lot about. But this particular course redone for this tournament by Ian Andrew, who is. What did you call him? The Mike Clayton?
He's the Mike Clayton of Canada.
Canada Golf. And I think that's true. We had him on our old podcast some years ago. He's fantastic, thoughtful, eloquent, articulate. He's done a series of good videos on YouTube with the PGA Tour and the club combined. They've put them together. He's gone through each of the holes and the changes. Fascinating insights delivered in a way where you don't have to have an interesting course architecture to take something out of it. And it'll be more interesting to watch the golf this week after having seen that. So I'm really interested to see this course. It's
I believe you put some centerline bunkers in on a few holes.
There's a couple, and there's one hole, I think it's the 13th hole, which is dictated, or 15th hole, dictated by a tree,
Okay.
which you wouldn't think he'd normally be in favour of. I'm not sure if he is, but he moved the tee, created a new tee to the left to create a different bunch of options around the tree, and it actually looks a whole lot more interesting than the old version. So I do recommend going and having watching it. It's a good interesting look, and the par 5 looks, the par 5 18th looks like it's going to give us a good finish as well. So, as I said, 1904, same year as the Australian Open. Pardon me. I think we vie for the oldest. I think Canada gets it. They played it earlier in the year. I think South Africa was also the same year.
I think South Africa might get everyone.
Somebody had it earlier in the year than us, and so we don't get the oldest.
I think South Africa maybe
really?
gets it, yeah.
I think it might be. It's either South Africa or Canada. But
We were 1904, I think.
Correct.
It was
The honorary
1904,
Michael Scott.
That's right.
It was a contentious finish, wasn't it?
Was it?
Oh, yeah, there was some conjecture about ball not being replaced in the right spot or something similar. It went all the way to the R&A to make a ruling. It was either that year or the second year. They eventually awarded him the... Yeah, it was a funky little thing that happened. Somebody picked up a ball before they should have or something. It was something like that, and it was contentious. Anyway.
What was that unplayable lie rule they used to have where if you took relief, your playing partner could make you play, or there was some... If you didn't take relief, you could make your playing partner stop on his ball or something.
It was ridiculous. The rules of golf were fantastic, and they've just been made more and more narrow.
It does go South Africa, Canada, and then Australia.
So a third.
Okay.
Bronze.
Yeah, well, they must have been...
We don't celebrate that, do we?
Even it'd be, yeah. Oh, it's even a bronze in the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
That one.
We've lost on all levels. Yeah. Well done, Canada. We can just merely tip our hat. You've tipped us out. The field this week, of course, all the attention will be on Rory. Rory is playing this week. He didn't play last week. This, of course, Jimmy, is all about scheduling around the US Open, which is next week. So all the players will make a decision, and some like to play the week before and some don't. Rory likes to play the week before, and he likes Canada. He's won the Canadian Open twice. Do we know why? Is there a...
It's Canada. Everyone likes Canada.
Yeah, is this just an affinity with...
They're friendly people. It's a nice place.
Might have a thing for poutine.
Tim Hortons.
Tim Horton. Maybe he's a Tim Hortons guy.
Yeah.
We found out a couple of years ago he was a Domino's guy, remember? We was talking to Justin Thomas about pizza.
He might be a man of simple taste.
He's a man of simple taste. Go Rory, a man of the people. What will that mean for his game? Really hard to say. Is he thinking about this week, or is he sort of thinking about next week? It's one of those, you must be in two minds. I don't know. Him and Scheffler, am I imagining the potential for, this feels to me like, and you can only get this in golf. Actually, you kind of get this in the AFL a bit too. I remember going to watch a game of AFL once where you had the Geelong guy, full forward, Gary Ablett at one end, and at the other end was Tony Lockett. And the game was all about them, and they would never get closer than 25 metres apart at any point during the game, and yet they were playing against each other in this weird way. It's a weird thing like that with Rory and Scheffler, I think, you know?
Yep.
One major each. Scheffler's won a couple of tour events. Does Rory need to come out this week and win this one? Or is it all
with
about
Rory and Bryson too? You
Bit of Rory
don't
and
think
Bryson
of Bryson and Scheffler as a.
Well, I think the three of them.
They haven't. The two of them haven't really gone that close head to head in a tournament. I don't think.
It's a bit of the Mickelson and Woods thing. It just kind of never happened. And even Ernie Els and Woods never really had much, certainly not at a major. They had a great finish in Hawaii one year. But this is what you live for. Because you don't get it often, the dream scenario is next week at Oakmont. Come Sunday, you've got DeChambeau, Scheffler and Rory. And you can pick a camp perfectly legitimately and you got someone to... This is kind of what I hope for. And I think that's sort of happening a bit with Rory and Scheffler. They're sort of communicating silently about who's going to be the dominant player in the game, and I would give Scheffler the edge just at the moment. Though he doesn't have a career Grand Slam, he does look like he might go on to get
He'll go pretty close.
at some point. You'd fancy his chances of getting there at some point. So look, McIlroy aside, who'll soak up most of the attention, I would think. Some interesting players to consider. Ludwig Aubert, where is he? Where's he at? It hasn't been the same Ludwig, has it, sort of since the Masters?
Still looks the part.
Absolutely.
Everything
looks
tools,
good,
doesn't he?
You were asking earlier, Logue, about, is the injury completely healed? Jimmy probably knows this better because he knows more players. I think there's a hangover from the injury, which is not physical, but it's the mental.
Yeah.
You can't just clear from your mind the flinch you get when your wrist
protecting
hurts
against it.
That's right, and that's a difficult thing to train yourself,
especially
out
in
on,
knee as well.
Knees are nasty things.
And wrists.
Even just training with the knee, he won't be able to necessarily do the full load, so maybe he's not as strong in one part of his golf swing. It's a very difficult thing to come back from. I feel like
the worst injury for a golfer is the wrist, because I'm not sure you ever get over that flinch. If you've had a
wrist
sharp
operations
pain in your wrist, that's really hard to put that out of your mind if you want to try and play golf, given the impacts they make. So look, you can't think that, Ludwig's had his run and that's the end of him, but it hasn't been the same Ludwig recently. So what will he do this week? Who knows? Maybe he's setting up for next week. The player I do like and I think is interesting, I'd really like to get your take on this, Adrian, is Shane Lowry, who I think you've got some issues with his attitude. Right?
Oh, he's got a bad attitude.
He does.
I'm putting him on watch. I just don't. I don't like.
He's trembling in his boots.
Who's
he's sitting in Canada right
thinking
now.
to himself,
golf reveals the true person, and
that's true.
At times he just doesn't seem very likable.
Yeah,
and then at other times he seems incredible,
exceptionally passionate.
Yeah.
So he's had a warning, right? You've said, and he's close to what? Who's on the list? Who are we Where's he being warned about going to? Where does Logue put Lowry when he crosses the line, which clearly he's close to doing?
Only I know. It's like, it's not.
Is it the
This
Ferguson?
isn't the sort
Are
of
there
list that's
categories?
published anywhere. And yeah, there's all sorts of categories. Yeah, exactly.
There's all sorts of people on lists.
There's,
On various lists. Ones who play the same sort of game as Logue, those who play the opposite.
there's categories for performance. There's categories for attitude. There's I don't know. There's
I reckon we're on
There's
one of
warning
those
lists.
somewhere,
yeah.
Jimmy.
warning
I
lists,
imagine
red
in his
lists,
apartment there's a room like that crazy person with big
Yeah, well-
white paper everywhere, and there's string lines
string.
from one to another, and it all circles around one person. And whoever that person is, it's got to be a fascinating thing.
You could see him developing his own black and white photos and pegging him up.
Yeah.
He's that type.
Yeah.
I think he'll go well. And then, of course, the Canadians, who for them, this is obviously a huge week, like our Australian players when they play the Australian Open. Plenty of good ones. Obviously, Nick Taylor.
Was it he's the defending champion? Was it last year he won?
2 years ago.
2
Robert
years ago.
2 years
McIntyre
ago.
won last year.
Oh, of course.
Nick Taylor, yeah. And you saw how mad that went when
Oh,
Nick
yeah.
won it a couple
Well, a Canadian hadn't won the thing
know.
for ever.
which was staggering, wasn't it? Well, it tells you how big the event is, I guess, is that the local
Well, I
players,
think
they've been able to sort
it's
of
going to
break through.
open the floodgates to Canadian winners now.
Okay, well,
which
you
is
may as well lead us with a tip then.
Corey Connors.
Nice.
I never
Canada's
considered him. That's a
finest.
really
I'm sure
interesting
you
pick.
were about to pick him. Right?
I did think about tipping him. I do think that he's a really good chance, but I'm actually going to go with Nick Taylor for my tip.
I'm going to go with Max Homer, who's been horrid at times, was good at the Masters. There's a bit there. He's going to play in front of what he sees. 3-putted the last at 36-hole qualifying for the US Open this morning to miss out. It
Be in a
looks like.
fabulous
So
frame of mind.
he'll be in a really good mood.
Oh, he's missed out.
I believe he's going to miss out. It's all in the final stages of that happening. But I think it's got to turn around for Max.
Well, good players can't play bad for long periods of time. That's why they're good players. Scheffler is that on steroids, isn't he? Has not played really any particularly good golf. Or the week in Texas, he was exemplary. But apart from that, when you won the PGA with far from his best golf, I didn't watch all of it this past week, but I can't imagine it was his best golf that he had.
No.
So you win with your B game when you're class. Homer's not in that class, but he also can't keep doing this for.
He's a nice player.
Oh, wow.
And there we find
Maybe he's had his 18 months.
there we find the Jack Nicklaus comparison.
Yeah.
Hey? Nice player.
Yeah, I like this. Moving on, and we're going to go to the US and LIV Golf Virginia, presented by Maaden. First time I saw it, I thought it said Maaden, like the
Tell us more.
PlayStation football game. But first ever time sponsor watch for LIV Golf, which is very exciting. I think it's event 8 of the season for LIV Golf. What is Maaden, I hear you ask, Rod? A Saudi Arabian mining company who just like to put their tagline, Unearth Tomorrow, everywhere, which I'm mocking a little bit, but for a mining company to have Unearth Tomorrow,
Not a bad.
it's pretty good.
Someone's
I can see what they're going for.
like,
there.
yeah. I'm saying
If I'd come back from lunch to a marketing meeting that came up with that, I'd be pretty happy, and I'd go straight back out to lunch.
Yeah,
Work here is done.
yeah. So they're mining, which is plentiful, I imagine, in Saudi Arabia. Question is, how do they get involved in LIV Golf? What's all the connection? Blah blah blah. Chairman Yasir Al Rahman.
Yeah, so on Logue's board, just 2 photos with 1 piece of string.
Yeah,
nothing too complex.
This is not complex. This is not stringing things
the
together.
Venn diagram
It's
is practically a
PIF money,
perfect circle.
supporting PIF money. It's a whole thing.
In all seriousness, Jimmy, I wonder why. There are questions bigger than us about issues bigger than golf, but I wonder why.
Yeah, well,
Well, we're getting there.
Logue's going to bring something to the table here. He's excited. So let's talk about the golf a
Firsts
little
are
bit
always
more.
exciting, Jimmy.
The usual LIV Golf field of players as they get ready ahead of a major. Rod, you spoke about the PGA Tour and whether players play the week before a major. LIV Golf basically doesn't have an option. Believe it's sourced from the players or the big name players saying we want to play before we play a major, of which there is 12 who will play next week, maybe one more. We're just waiting to see the US Open final qualifying for a couple. But golf courses of interest this week. Robert Trent Jones Golf Club in Virginia. First 4 Presidents' Cups were played there. Solheim Cup in 2024. Shores of Lake Manassas. It was a great match play venue. There's water, there's big white bunkers, there's elevation, there's all this sort of stuff. It'll be interesting to see how it is as an individual tournament site.
There's footage of Fred Couples chipping in which makes a tournament a tournament.
Yep.
Once that's happened, now you got to show. So,
There's good footage of Brad Hughes playing there on late notice when he got drafted into the team, and there's a bit.
I talked to him about it on that thing about golf
Yeah.
episode I did with him, and he said he's never stood on a first tee and kind of lost complete feeling in his hands,
Yeah.
feet, and arms. No idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
Beg Nick Price to hit first, please.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting venue. Again, it's got more preview work to it than other LIV events on their website. I wonder if it's the President's Cup connection. I wonder if they're having their little dig or if they are getting better at doing that stuff.
I'm interested with this sponsorship angle. Feels like there's something happening there.
Also interesting in the preview is Robert Trent Jones Sr., who designed the golf course's quote of "the terrain is aesthetically perfect." I don't think it's directly come from Robert Trent Jones Sr., so I won't level the accusation at him, but terrain is not spelt Terraine.
No, it's not.
Is that a dessert or like a? It's like a pat. It's like a
taurine,
pate.
taurine is what's in Red Bull that keeps you awake.
Oh, right,
But, you cannot.
Something you do to a dessert.
I've
terrain.
written a lot. I've done a lot of editing. We all make mistakes.
Yes.
They're acceptable. But if you're using a word and then talking about its aesthetic pleasing qualities, don't make the sentence unaesthetically
That's right. Don't visually
pleasing.
butcher the sentence by misspelling one of the key words.
I'm not going to get over it for a while.
Clear.
For the players, I mentioned 12 in the US Open.
Well, can I just before one aesthetically a very aesthetically pleasing thing about this course is its logo, which is incredibly badass. It's got an eagle, bald eagle looking to the left, which I think it means it's at war.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The way the eagle is
Is that right?
It's clutching a driver and an iron, or it might be like a Calamity Jane type of putter in both of its claws, surrounded by a wreath with a ball at the top. It's a fantastic logo.
I've played a bit of golf in Virginia, and there's actually some really enjoyable kind of golf, and it's all like this.
Yes.
There's a lot of history in Virginia, a brother who went to college there, but there's a lot of elevation, and it's well maintained, and there's just a good bit of history, and everything feels a bit next level, logo included.
If you came out to your car one morning and found that somebody had put that logo as a sticker on the car, you'd feel like you'd been marked for something bad. That is a threat.
I wonder if all the members have it as a tattoo, like as a fighting class.
Speaking about the eagle being left and right and meaning things, I heard something really interesting on the radio this week about the Queen. When the Queen was alive and she had these diplomatic things, she would communicate her feelings via what brooches she chose to wear, but you kind of had to know what she was saying. So when Trump visited in 2017 or whatever, she wore a brooch given to her by the Obamas. Because she knew that it would drive him mad.
I like it.
But that he wouldn't know that. One of his aides probably told him later.
Yeah.
But isn't that just beautifully subtle? Just whatever brooch she wears, you've got to try and figure out what's she trying to say with that piece of jewellery.
It's not like when you walk into Sydney podcast studios and you have to see how much work's been done to see what kind of mood Rod's in.
Yeah, or if there's donuts
or if
out,
or
whether
if
it's crumbs
there's just
of
an empty bag.
There's a pyramid of toddler milk.
Yeah, correct. The window inside. The players most of interest, as I mentioned, are those going into the US Open because we're looking for form and all those sort of things. Those are Bryson DeChambeau, Richard Bland, Tyrrell Hatton, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, Joaquin Niemann, Carlos Ortiz, John Rahm, Patrick Reed, Cam Smith, Scott Vincent, and Gennaro Kazuma. It looks like Mark Leishman may join them out of US Open final qualifying. There may be a couple more, but there's too many final qualifying sites to open it up and really get a good
Golf's longest day, is that what they call it?
That is what they call it.
As we said last week with the women, Jimmy, there will be a slew of fabulous stories in the next week or two of players qualifying who have just got great backstories.
Correct. John Rahm is arguably the most interesting that people will start to pay attention to. Bryson's the defending champion next week. He's playing well on LIV as well, so you've got to think. Cam Smith's one that you want to look at and see where he's at. US Opens and US Open at Oakmont, you wouldn't have thought it was going to suit Cam anyway.
You would have said the same about Chambers Bay, though, too, wouldn't you? It was kind of a performance that launched his whole career.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I think really Oakmont is a different beast. Shane Lowry tells a good story about the first time he went there before 2007, I think it was, that TJ won there. And he went to play a practice round.
Cabrera 2016?
2016, sorry. 2007 was Cabrera. And he goes out to play a practice round, and there's a couple of loops that come back to the clubhouse, and he played something like 5 or 6 holes, walked off and went in to get a drink or something and said to whoever was with him, well, I can't play this golf course. And he nearly won it.
Terrible attitude.
Terrible attitude. There you go.
Yeah. And Putnam went pretty well that week, I think.
Yeah,
didn't he?
yeah.
Andrew Putnam.
Andrew Putnam.
Forgotten
It's a
man.
great name for a golfer, isn't it? What's he doing? He's just Putnam.
Very
If he ever
sharp
gets
word.
the yips, he gets the chipping yips, he'll just be Putnam.
It's just Putnam.
What's he doing when he gets near the ground? He's just Putnam.
All right, let's get some tips here. I'm going to lead it off. I'm going to go with Mark Leishman, who success of the 36-hole qualifying, extra rounds of golf is probably good for Leish. He's a player. He's not a practicer. He's famously not a practicer. So he's a Virginia resident or Virginia Beach. It all makes sense to me. So Leishman for me.
I'll go with that. Yep, good player. Bryson for me. The sort of guy who can win 2 weeks in a row. I don't think it's true of every golfer, but he's the sort who can turn up this week with the idea of winning so that he's ready to win again next week. So why not?
Like,
Well, if you'd have asked me about an hour ago, I would have probably picked John Rahm. But
I think
Take
I
one.
did.
you did ask me about an hour ago. So now I've changed my mind. I'm going to go with Tyrell Corporation.
Nice.
Jimmy, we have a new category that you thought about, and then there's my take one pick that I'm now jumping off.
It's a very rare category.
It's a rare category, but it's a new category.
Second chance Sunday.
Yeah, second
I
chance
like
Sunday.
It. Yeah. And to be honest, given I keep the records, if John Rahm wins, I'm probably going to give it to us anyway. So that's fine.
Second serve.
Keeping right moving along, let's go to the LPGA and the Shoprite LPGA Classic presented by ACER and you, Rod.
Shoprite, shops, pretty obvious. ACER, computers, printers. Nothing particularly interesting about the sponsors, but it is-
Shoprite's a good. I like a Shoprite. So
I've not been there. You spent some time in it.
Yeah, I like a Shoprite. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good on them because they've sponsored this for a long time, actually. They've been great supporters of the LPGA and fantastic. So it's the Seaview Golf Club Bay Course, New Jersey, Atlantic City, I think. This is the gambling area.
Yes, correct.
On the East Coast, is it not, Jimmy? So
I've never been to Atlantic City, but I think I'd like it.
it's like a playground for the New Yorkers.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they go-
You take a weekend trip to Atlantic City from places like Philadelphia and New York, and you can go gamble and you can.
Okay.
Theme parks, I think.
It's not-
maybe.
Theme parks, correct? Yeah.
It sounds a bit boganic.
It's probably more like the Gold Coast than Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Okay, well, in that case, Logue's analysis stands.
Yeah.
I think we've confirmed. This is a good week for the course architecture types. We've got the one that Ian Andrews worked on in Canada. This is a Donald Ross in conjunction with Hugh Wilson from Merion. Interesting architect in his own right. Anybody who's interested in looking up his story. So the pedigree is good. It's a really open site. If you think about trees you might see on the Mornington Peninsula, that's sure smaller trees, not great amounts of foliage, not big trees as we might think of trees, low-lying trees and sort of tall grasses, real ball-chewing stuff off the sides
Yep.
of birds, but it's out of play for the most part, especially for a field of this calibre, except when it blows, Jimmy. This course really can be, or I think the golf here is really dictated by the weather. When Kari Webb won in 2013, she won it with 4 under, and the following year Stacey Lewis won it at 16 under. So you're not changing a golf course enough to make that sort of difference in the course of a year. So it tells you how much of an effect that the wind has. And that's what makes the golf interesting, I think. And there's a great honour roll here which would back that up. You know, Annika Sorensen's a 3-time winner. Anna Nordquist won twice. Brooke Henderson, Mel Reid, Dottie Pepper, Betsy King. Brings good players to the fore. It does that partly because it always attracts a good field. And despite what the players endured last week, most of them have signed up again for this week, straight from the US Women's Open to here.
There's a great deal of, I think, realisation with LPGA players of events that have been around for a long time and are well supported by an ongoing sponsor deserve their support. I don't know how they do it. I don't know player regulations or anything like that, but they seem to just show up
There
in
are
the
certain
right
events
spots.
that, do the right thing. And so, look, I don't know, Jimmy, what does that do? Yeah, okay.
Is this a 3-round event, Rod?
It has been previously.
I'm looking at the date, 6th, 7th, 8th.
It has been
So
previously. and then
maybe
it went back to,
they're persisting with 3 rounds.
Yeah, well,
There's
that
not
may
sure.
again, the LPGA has always played a few 54-hole events throughout the season, and it makes sense to mix it up, particularly off the back of a major.
Yeah, okay.
And KPMG is not far away either, so they.
All right. I'll
What
let
does
it pass.
what does last week do to the field this week? Logue?
Very good field.
It's a great field, but how's Nelly Corder feeling this week?
Well, I'm tipping her
after what
because
finished?
she's heard what Logue said about her putting, and not unlike his room of crazy theories, she's like a Jack Nicklaus type. She's sticking up on the fridge a picture of Logue going, "I'll show you, yips."
He's the Bob Drum
Yep,
to her Jack Nicklaus. Okay. That's
Adrian Drum.
Adrian Drum. Look, it'll be a good and interesting week of golf. The course is interesting and the field is good. That's what you want. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Am I right in recalling this course has hosted a major, Rod?
1942, as a matter of fact. You're right. Back to take
Excellent
one.
stuff.
I did remember this. Yes, it was good of you to bring it up. No, really, Sam Snead won his first major here. It was a composite course of the two 18-hole layouts they played, the 1942 PGA when it was still match play. So quite the history. I had a feeling, though I didn't see it in my research, I thought there was another.
Do you know who he
Perhaps not a major, but I thought Arnold Palmer had won a tournament here at some point as well. I didn't see it in my research this time, but I thought I'd seen that previously. I may be wrong about that. I probably shouldn't have said it, but I have now, so that's that.
Sam Snead beat Jim Tunisa.
Jim Tunisa. Everybody beat Jim Tunisa.
Sorry.
He was an easy beat, Jim.
Okay.
Tenesas have a great history in American golf.
Yeah.
There was Mark Tenessa, who played on the PGA Tour for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So both him and Jim, that's a fabulous.
I won't hear slander against the Tenessa.
They're not
family.
Yancey brothers by any stretch.
They're
Bert
not.
And who was the other one? Bert.
I
and
can't remember.
Bert Yancey.
That conversation took a turn, Essa.
Yes. Let's get some tips.
Oh, let's turn Esther.
I'm tipping Nelly. Rod, who is yours?
I'm going to go with Ayaka Furuwe. She's played well here before. It's her sort of course, not particularly long.
No.
And in the wind, and she didn't play great. Yeah, no, that's all right. Luckily, we're recording the backup log. Or take two would have been problematic as well. That's a problem beyond that because this is how I make my money.
This is exactly how far we got into the first.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Maybe my recording program just doesn't like women's golf. They're out there, those people. Anyway,
Are we able to
Ayaka
continue?
Furuwe. Yeah, we're recording on the hardware.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have round 3 in me. Luke, a tip from you.
This is such an interesting field. Now, a few names looking down the list who, I don't know what's happening with Alison Corpuz this year.
I don't know.
You don't know, Jim?
There's a lot of these players in women's golf who show up and you think could be world beaters for a long, long time and have these incredible runs, more so than that 18-month Harrington theory, who then disappear for a range of reasons and just
There's
struggle.
so much depth in women's golf
Correct,
as well.
and they come in so young as well, so the expectation levels are elevated, I think, quickly.
Jennifer Kupcho as well.
Yeah.
Just disappeared. Anyway, she's in this field, but I'm not going with her. I'm Lauren Coughlin.
Nice.
So just about when do you stop talking about a player? I was saying this about Cam Smith as well and sort of take on. When is the point? I mean, there's no obviously defined point, but you mentioned Alison Corpuz, Jennifer Kupcho, you're right. You've had Cam Smith, I think, is in the same boat. Dustin Johnson's crossed that line now, I think. We don't talk about him at all.
Brooks Koepka's on his way.
Absolutely. It was only 9 years ago that Dustin Johnson hit that extraordinary second shot at Oakmont to win the US Open. That entire crazy final round with you might have a penalty, you might not, and he found it. Well,
I wonder, again, we've spoken about this, I've spoken about this particularly before with the LPGA, with the level of coverage. If Alison Corpuz was a male playing the PGA Tour, had that success that she had, and then was in the doldrums of form that she is now, I feel like it would be a much bigger talking point. There would be people hammering away going, what happened to this player? But there's so much less, I suppose, non-tour state coverage that would be critical or do that deep dive on it that maybe we don't get it. Cam Smith's another good example that here in Australia he's been held up as such a good player. He is such a good player.
He is.
But he's such a presence here and he's such a fan favourite that he gets so much more attention than other players who, he's won a major and a Players' Championship. He's got the same record as Adam Scott. And he's probably won individual tournaments more recently than Adam.
Yeah.
Adam's older, understandably, but there's not that same level because of the attention.
I guess the difference is Adams continued to put the runs on the board year after year after year after year, and that's what we're seeing. And hasn't put the runs on the board
it's
for a couple
difficult
of years.
comparing, but it's also levels of coverage. Finally, we go to you, Logue, and the DP World Tour at the KLM Open or the
Open to KLM or the Open to...
I don't know. I put it in my notes, but I didn't really know.
The Open to Netherlands.
Open to KLM?
The Open to Holland?
Open to Holland.
To Holland, yeah. So you got
Open to Holland.
You got that whole thing in play.
That's just for
let's just go with KLM.
That's just for... Well, Rod, our French listeners wouldn't have known what we're talking about.
No, nor would our German listeners last week or anybody who's heard any of the potential foreign languages any of us have tried to speak.
They understand now. Anyway, this tournament's been played at the International. It was played there last year. It's been played there once before this as well, I think. It's a golf course designed by Ian Woosnam. An Ian Woosnam.
You just don't see that often.
You don't see that
You
often.
really don't.
You really don't.
I don't know if Woosie put his name to it, but Master Golf is a design firm that was involved in this as well. And I don't know.
Don't know much about Master
Don't
Golf.
know much about Master Golf. I can tell you though that this is. I don't like the look of this course.
Okay.
It's
That was beautiful delivery there. There was something about that could be a catchphrase of a TV show. I don't like the look of this course.
It's hard for Woosie to get upset with that, the way he delivered that. If we told Woosie that to his face,
Not happy,
I imagine
Jan.
Woosie's a
Got that
punchy little guy, but I don't think he would be.
Punchy drunk is how I'd heard it described once.
It's on a very nice piece of land. I don't know if it's marvelous terrain or whatever.
Aesthetic.
Taurine, I don't know.
But it's in this area of around Schiphol, the airport there, which is all dunesy and very nice. It's actually really nice golf land. It's a little bit sort of that swampy coastal land, which makes for quite good golf. And there is some good golf around there, but this, I don't know, it's sort of cut out of a little bit more of a parkland part of that terrain. And there's a lot of mounds. Like, they look like those, what did Harley Cruz tell us? He said, I don't know who he was working for at the time, but they used to just point at a spot on the fairway and say, that's a 2-truck mound there. That's a 1-truck mound. 2-truck mound, 1-truck mound, 2-truck mound. It's where they just ship in. It's how much dirt they put into
these measurement systems are fantastic between the 2-truck mounds and the Forza Harleys. And
it looks like it's got a lot of that, a lot of fake mounds. It just looks actually kind of ridiculous. But this terrain, I don't think, needed to be dressed up in that weird way. So anyway, I'm out on the
slap for Ian Woosnam.
Sorry, Woozy. There's a reason why we probably haven't seen too many Ian Woosnam courses around the world. He's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. He's crossed the line.
His course design career is over.
Calculating the odds of ever bumping into Ian Woosnam anywhere before giving your answer, and you think they're pretty low.
They're not zero, but they're pretty okay. Close. Yeah.
Woozy, even at his height, having a go at me would be punching down.
I'm backing Woozy in that encounter. I can tell you.
Absolutely.
7 days a week.
Yeah. It'd be so am I. It'd be punching down if he had a go at me. I can have a go at him.
Didn't you have a thing with Lee Westwood a few years ago?
We're not going to re-prosecute.
Lee Westwood embarrassed him on social media platform.
Lee Westwood. But yeah, needless to say, I've barely been on Twitter since, or X or whatever it's called now. I don't know. That's I learnt my lesson. So anyway, this field, Guido Migliozzi is defending champion. He's playing again. There's another Frankie Molinari is playing as well. It's a pretty strong Italian contingent coming to this event. Laurie Cantor, I think, is another one to watch. Hao Tong Lee continues to be in pretty good form.
Our man there, Hao Tong.
Thurston Lawrence. I think Jimmy Walker's in this field.
Yeah, he is. Jimmy Walker's playing a bunch over there. I don't know what that's about, but sure.
Well, he's a member as a former major champion. An automatic European Tour member for life.
Yeah.
Dutch hopes will be with Rod's favourite Hoost Luton.
Yeah, I thought about him this week.
So did
Just getting that on record.
Yeah, me too.
If he hadn't missed the cut last week,
he
might
was
have got
a chance.
the nod.
Yeah.
And there's a few other. Darius Van Driel, who is he's a fine player.
Nice player.
Nice player, sorry.
Yeah.
Nice player.
This is, I think, by the way, just to clarify, they would call it the Open to Dutch, just looking at the history.
Okay.
Because it was the Dutch Open.
Yeah, right.
And one of the great honour rolls in European golf that you don't think about. These tournaments that become KLM Open, you remember it. But like there's Graham Marsh won here a couple of times, Seve, Brian Barnes, Jack Newton, and then going a little further back, Percy and Aubrey Boomer.
Oh, wow.
Won it years back to back. But Flory Van Donk used to win pretty much every year. And there's just it's got a lot there.
Clates will tell you the quality of the golf in the Netherlands is off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
Some magnificent golf. And Shane Darby did listen, it's one for the true nerds, but he did a real deep dive into
didn't he?
Net golf.
He spent a fair bit of time over there.
He spent a fair bit of time over there and came
Payne
back.
Stewart,
Just
another
fantastic.
winner.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Bernhard Langer, just basic. Stephen Leaney, twice.
Well, I would have gone into all of that if you'd have allowed me, Jimmy, but obviously, you did some research as well. It's fine. It's okay.
Can I tell you, Vaughan Summers finished runner-up to Ken Brown in 1983.
Another thing about golf.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Really?
Yes.
There you go. Okay, sorry.
Went to war with
Ken Brown's pretty notable.
Ken Brown's great. I like Ken Brown. So that's how I got on there. Anyway.
Okay. Rasmus Niergaard Peterson, just on Rasmus Watch.
Disappointing last week,
yeah,
given someone tipped him.
Yeah.
Poor showing from Rasmus.
Indeed. And Jordan Smith, who I continue to
Corey Connors
like
of the DP
football.
World Tour. Fabulous hitter. Struggles in the putting department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. A few Australians we've got in there as well, probably headlined by David Micheluzzi and Jason Scrivener, Evergreen.
A consummate DP World Tour player.
Daniel Gale's in there as well.
Good week for Daniel Gale last week.
Really good week last week, yeah.
Anyway, I think we can
some tips,
get to a pick. I was tempted by Rasmus Watch, but I haven't heard anything much from Laurie Cantor recently, so I'm gonna go with Laurie Cantor.
I think Laurie Cantor might be in the US Open as well next week. So interesting to be playing.
The players you got in the Masters,
all right.
played the PGA.
But playing the Dutch Open and then going over there. Maybe he's on like Rory. He's playing his National Open tour.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, it could be.
Couldn't get into Canada. Went
Play the next National Open.
go
you
play
can
the
find.
Open to Dutch.
The one named after an airline.
Yeah,
It's a fantastic idea.
I didn't mention that. Sponsor watch KLM. I think we all know it's an airline.
Yeah.
Not the 90s house band KLF. If you remember, KLF is going to rock you, if you
Yes.
recall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Remarkable pop culture reference. from
That
Rod.
is. That's I
rare.
didn't expect that.
You don't get that in a first recording. I'll tell you that.
Honestly, I thought about mentioning that, but I thought, it'll just Rod
won't get it.
Rod will kill the
Kill
bit.
the vibe.
Yeah.
Do you know it was playing the last time I was in a nightclub? KLF. So that tells you why it's memorable and how long ago it was that I was in a nightclub. Troy Merritt for me.
Okay.
Another American who is plying his trade on the European Tour. Good player, really good player. Keeps bobbing up on leaderboards. I just tip my hat to him, and I hope he has some success because of it. It'd be great to see him bob up this week.
One of the best putters on the planet. Troy
Yeah,
Merritt.
the golf course you're describing might look a bit more like what he grew up with in America and feel a bit more like what he grew up with in America. It might just be his week. But a really good player. Just good on him for going and travelling. Going on elsewhere.
Yannick Paul for me.
Okay.
Been a bit inconsistent.
Bit of forgotten man
But
as well.
as you both know, I'm a huge fan of the Paul brothers.
Yeah,
which I
ever
only
since you found out they were brothers.
Well,
on this very podcast live.
so much so that I found out last night they're twin brothers.
Yes, that's right.
Like, I knew they were brothers now, obviously, but found out they're twin brothers.
What's next?
So he wants
What's on the next episode?
Well, he wants to play on the PGA Tour with
Maybe they're-
twin brother Jeremy.
Is there a triplet?
Well, this is what I'm hoping to find out if Yannick wins. But I'm a big Yannick Paul fan. I think he's a really good player. He just
Who was the third war brother? Was it
Dean.
Trevor?
Dean.
Afghanistan, the
Yeah.
Forgotten War.
Yeah, correct.
That was his nickname. It's brutal, isn't it?
Goodness.
Yes, it's actually good timing. Pop culture almost. It's the War Brothers' 60th birthday today.
Oh, you're joking.
Or it was maybe yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
I met
Huge
Mark.
I was a huge Mark War fan as a kid.
I met Mark
Yeah.
Ward.
I've got one of his pads.
Yeah.
I'm a Steve
lovely
Waugh
bloke.
guy.
Very
Yeah, it
affable,
makes sense.
Yeah.
charming human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a decent golfer as well.
Oh, no question.
Played a lot of golf at Coimbra Waters.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where I interviewed him.
That will just about finish us up for episode 115. Rod, I've got an over-under for you.
Mm-hmm.
Which one gets more hours in the next week? DP World Tour watching or some kind of bizarre renovation to the studio?
They can happen in conjunction, Jimmy.
I
We have
bet
the
you they do.
We
Yeah.
have the technology here to have the
Yeah.
phone there whilst we do it or to bring the TV in. This weekend, being a long weekend, will be a golf watching weekend.
Nice.
To take a break.
Very good. And wouldn't it be good if we got a long weekend for the US Open or US Women's Open? So no work on the Monday.
Yeah.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Start campaigning for it.
Yeah. Let's
You've got contacts at GA. Get us a shindig down in Canberra to go and...
I've done a bit of work with Albo on Marrickville Golf Club. That's my task.
Are any of us doing any serious work on Monday morning of a major week anyway?
Is any of us doing any serious
You could
work ever?
have stopped that sentence at Monday morning.
We had the time to do a whole nother podcast. I don't think any of us have got a full book any time. Like similarly for you, what's the number of episodes before someone comes to the realization that your research is now largely being done by something that shares initials with basketball legend Allen Iverson? We're not going to outwardly talk about it, but if people want to work out Allen Iverson and what might be doing the background
Or that
below.
strange size paper, A1.
I have a team of researchers behind my results. Jimmy.
It's none of them you've
That's,
ever met or know anything about. But they're squirreling away like the QI elves.
It's best we don't lift the covers on what goes on behind the scenes to come up with these
We've
picks.
done a lot of cover lifting on this show today, but anyway, you can of course follow along with all these tournaments and so much more on the Golf Australia magazine website, golfaustralia.com.au, where you can also find our sibling podcast, The Thing About Golf, which surely is due for a new episode.
It is.
Guest reveal, Rod.
Well, we put it off from last week because the US Women's Open. Things
Yes.
get lost in major weeks, as you know. We're sort of going to held it off till this week. And it is Andrew Coulthard.
Oh, nice. I think we spoke about that before, but good interview.
Oh, he's a terrific interview. He's a really thoughtful and intelligent. And of course, great ties to Australia. Won the Australian PGA here twice at New South Wales Golf Club. Spent a lot of time playing golf over here in his sort of formative professional years. And he's a really interesting listener. He's got a fabulous grasp on the game and his own place in it. And, of course, the Sky Sports commentator now. And, well worth a listen, Andrew Coulthard.
Excellent. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week on Playing from the Tips.